Good afternoon and welcome to this RTS London event. My name is Lucy Talon. I am Head of Mental Health and Wellbeing at the Film and TV charity, and I'm really delighted to be chairing this fantastic discussion today about neurodiversity and mentally healthy productions. I myself have a long history of mental health problems and I've campaigned in this area for a long time. And it's a real privilege to be working at the Film and TV charity, where we try to support people who have a whole range of issues, and we're doing some strategic work to address the causes of mental health problems in the film and TV industry. The Film and TV charity, in case you don't know, because not everybody has heard of it yet, but we're hoping that will change over the next few months, we offer a free round-the-clock support line for professionals. So whether you're struggling or you just need someone to talk to and you're feeling lonely, you can contact us 24/7 on 0800 054 0000. We also offer financial advice and support, and legal advice, financial advice, and we can help with everything from mental well-being. We can provide private therapy. We can advise on bullying and harassment, and we have developed a whole host of practical tools and resources. So in 2020, the Film and TV Charity's Looking Glass survey revealed that 9 in 10 people working in our industry had experienced mental health issues, which is way above the national average. And I suspect something that doesn't feel like that much of a shock to many of the people who are watching today. And I think we can all agree that something needs to change. It's also approximated that 1 in 7 people in the UK are neurodivergent. And at its simplest, this means that their brain learns and functions differently from a neurotypical person. So with the long hours and the intensity that can occur in our industry, poor mental health can affect even the most neurotypical of people, never mind the neurodivergent, who are more susceptible to mental health problems. So with me today are a panel of neurodiverse industry professionals from production and post-production, who will be discussing their experiences within the industry and what they believe needs to change to create healthier working practices for everyone. I would like to add a trigger warning before we begin. So just bear in mind that we will be talking about distressing issues, and bear that in mind before continuing to watch. And if anything that we talk about brings up upsetting memories or encourages you to want to reach out for help, again, please do ring our lovely support team. They are there to listen and to support you with whatever it is that you're going through. We will also have a short Q&A at the end with our panelists. So please feel free to pop any questions you would like to ask in the live chat, and I will try to get through as many as I can at the end. This session is due to be about an hour long. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our panelists. So live from Scotland, we have Stuart Chassimere, who is Managing Director at production company Create Anything. We are pleased to have Zeb Chadfield, founder of the post-production company The Finish Line. Next up, we have Leo Anna Thomas, a wellbeing facilitator and art director at 6 Foot from the Spotlight. And last, but very much not least, we have Lenny Varvaridis, who is the founder and a creative producer at Displa. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I am so excited to be talking to you. It's a real privilege to have such a brilliant panel. So let's kick off. There's a lot to get through, and I will start with you, Zeb. Look surprised. This is how we planned it, remember?
Yes.
Could you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and why you founded The Finish Line, which is such a brilliant place to work?
Thank you. Well, there's always work to be done. So, I always feel like every day I'm trying to find a new way to be better at looking after everyone. But yeah, that aside, I exactly 10 years ago, pretty much, founded The Finish Line. I have been in post-production most of my life. I'm dyslexic and also suffered from depression. And ultimately had a quite major nervous breakdown in 2011, and that basically led me to sort of you start to reevaluate your life. What am I doing? Why am I in this industry? How will I ever have a family? How will I ever support my kids and be a part of their lives? And all of these sorts of things were sort of questions going around in my head. But I knew that I loved what I do and did and wanted to keep doing it. So I made what some might have thought was a crazy decision to set up my own company at the time and try and do it better. And so yeah, from sort of day one, it was all about how do I make a company better for someone like me, someone who's dyslexic and suffering from depression, and how do I manage time? How do we make a living? But also look after people. But then as the company grew, then that became about, I guess, the neurodiversity thing. It was, when someone has OCD, how do we make sure that we're a great place for someone with OCD to work, someone with anxiety to work? How can we help people, use I always sort of think of them as powers rather than hindrances. How do we make a place where people can kind of utilize their skills and be supported, and everything we do every day is a big sort of learning curve of how can we do this better, what can we learn, and what's the best sort of knowledge and science out in the world. And it's just great that it's becoming a bigger, broader conversation. It was something that everyone in the company is probably sick of me talking about, because I try and make sure everyone knows that I'm an open book, and I want them to all be open with me so that I can help them as much as I can. But yeah, so it's just nice. Obviously, I decided to start speaking out a bit more once I sort of read that Looking Glass survey and realized how bad it is across the industry. And it's it's not just a small sort of group suffering in the corner. It's much bigger than that.
It is indeed, and thank you for sharing your experiences with us. I think that's probably something quite a lot of people working in the industry can identify with, that awful feeling of, oh, how am I ever going to get back in? How am I going to provide for my family, particularly for freelancers? And what you've set up is really inspiring. I think it's role models like you that give all of us the sort of faith to keep going. Lenny, could you tell us a bit about you and the work that you do at Displa?
Hello.
In fact, I'm conscious that I'm saying Displa, and that's an acronym, so perhaps you could explain what that stands for.
It's kind of not a real acronym. It's meant to be short for dyslexic play, but I don't really use that anymore. I kind of just like the sound of Displa. It sounds magical and playful, and I like having a word that I've created. And so it just came about. It doesn't, like I said, dyslexic play. I set up Displa first as a hobby when I graduated from doing my MA in writing for performance, and I was looking to connect with other neurodivergent writers, and I was predominantly working in live arts at the time. And then in 2013, it went from being a hobby to being our company, which I run with my partner, Kazimir Beletsky. And we predominantly run it as two artists. So it's very much a neurodivergent, artistic-led organisation. And we're predominantly funded by the Arts Council. So we're approaching the work we do. I guess I could relate to what Zeb was saying about approaching it with honesty, being really open about what your strengths and weaknesses are and what your diagnosis is, and having that opportunity to not mask for the first time in my life really meant that I felt comfortable within my own skin. And I think a lot of neurodivergent people do set up their own businesses for that very reason of wanting to find a place where they can feel comfortable without having to pretend, without having to justify or make excuses for the way that they interact with the world. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered the question, but
you have.
Okay, good.
That's incredibly inspiring, and I'm sure there'll be more questions for you at the end, and we can come on to pick your brain in more detail shortly. Thank you for explaining that, and I love the name Displa. I think you're quite right. It is really playful and creative. Leo, you took a break from the industry for some years, didn't you? Could you tell us a little about your experience and why you returned to the industry?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I like that as well, Displa. I like that. It's good.
Yeah.
My name is Leo. Yeah, I started in the industry about 20 years ago within the art department, and I did take a break from the industry. I entered into the industry when I was about 24 on a great trainee scheme that doesn't exist anymore called FT2, and I was a few films in, and I was finding the hours extremely hard. I was being bullied on a film that I was working on at the time, and it was around 2008, 2009 that I decided to leave the industry. And I was about 29 years old, and I thought that was it. I can't do this anymore. And people were telling me, don't leave because you will lose all your contacts. You'll never get back in. But I knew that my mental health came first. I had a very supportive partner at the time who also helped me. And during that time, I went into do a number of different jobs. I'd never worked in any kind of sector before, so I did a random load of jobs for about 4 years. I started to look after mental health, went into counselling. And when I decided to come back in 2013, I, again, with a supportive partner, wanted to come back and be honest about why I left and know that I had looked after myself and my mental health whilst I was away, and ultimately enjoy the job, and I'm good at the job. And I had trained for it, and I didn't want to be kicked out or kind of walk away from it because of those working conditions. I wanted to come back and try and help change in any way that I could those working conditions. I'm dyslexic. I've been very vocal about that. And during the time coming back in the industry, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which is, and you said it earlier on, Zeb, about superpower. That's my superpower, for having BPD. And I attended, after a year of denial, I attended DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, and those skills changed my life. They're all evidence-based skills, and then I started using these skills on myself and crew around me. And in that point, I was a standby art director, and it was 2017 that I had lost a friend, Alan McDonald, production designer, to suicide. And I'd found out after his death that he was also being bullied on a job, and I just was like, this is ridiculous. This shouldn't be happening. And I went to be trained as a mental health first aider. I was on a production, and I made my own T-shirts that said mental health first aider on the back, and I basically was a standby art director for 3 productions, but the crew could see that I was also a mental health first aider. During that time, I was put in touch with Matt Longley, who's the co-founder of 6 Feet from the Spotlight, a non-profit organisation to try and help take care of the mental health of crew and touring musicians. He had also lost a friend to suicide, and we were actually put in touch by a mutual friend. And today I'm on the board of directors at 6 Feet from the Spotlight. And basically the role of mental health first aider became the new role of wellbeing facilitator. And since then, I have officially done the role of wellbeing facilitator on productions 4 times. And I'm still a standby art director, but I predominantly want to move and stay into the wellbeing side of things. Yeah, I think that's about it. And I hope you can see me okay, because what I can see is a really pixelated version of myself.
We can see you. I think it is a little pixelated, but we can see them. We can see your eyes really well, and that's the important bit, and your hair, which is obviously the most important.
There you go. Well. There you go. That's fine. Everything else is gone. That's all right.
Your story is amazing, and I mean, I'm sure that everyone listening probably felt the same as I felt just then when you said, you know, you came back because it was a job that you loved, it was a job that you were good at, and why should you not be able to? And I just felt like everybody in the audience was really rooting for you at that point. And it's also brilliant that you've been able to kind of find something else that you love and care about as much, which is helping other people in the industry. So again, thank you for sharing your experiences, and really look forward to talking to you more about the work that you've been doing. I'm going to come on to Stuart. Hi, Stuart.
Hello.
Can you tell us a bit about your experiences with mental health and neurodiversity, and why did you create your company, Create Anything?
So I am a director and MD for Create Anything. I, you know, we are the first Black production company in Scotland, and being in the industry for a few years now, I'm realizing there's not many Black production companies and Black productions on networks and streaming services. Um, I I was diagnosed with bipolar in 2005, and it was a self-diagnosis. It was a self-diagnosis, funny enough, from a Stephen Fry documentary. And you know, through that diagnosis, I looked back in the last how many years and realized what I was doing and saying certain things. I too see bipolar as a superpower. As you know, it's kind of highs and lows. Um, One of the main things about
Yeah.
Create Anything and the talent pool that I created, it's a diverse talent pool, was the last documentary that I made was about mental health. It was a an influencer with millions of followers who suffers from PTSD, and it's called Behind the Smile. And I think that within the Black community, we tend not to speak about our mental health. We already have this discussions on racism within with throughout life, and then it's adding that extra trait on top of that, and also being from Africa, back home in Africa, it's something that we definitely do not talk about. In sense of a neurodiversity and the traits that I kind of take from there, I would say I've noticed that when most of my ideas come when I'm, let's say, manic. Now I'm on medication and things like that, but when I'm manic, that's when I come up with my ideas. They're quick and they're fast. Um, and then I'll notice that I'll come out of it after a day or after a few days, and I've created something. And because I put so much passion and energy into it, now in the last, I would say, 5 years, these are things that are getting commissions. So I see that as a good thing. I love having bipolar, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I know I know what the illness is, so if there's certain triggers out there, then I'm aware of them. It doesn't. I wouldn't say it affects my life whatsoever. One thing you have to make sure is that the people around you know that you have this illness. Now, being an MD, being someone who speaks to other production companies and networks, and being that MD, it can be difficult staying on top of things, and you need to have great support um, be, behind you. But I started the Reframe Diverse Talent Pool as well, which has been very, very successful over the last year. But within creating that group, I realized the amount of people that have mental health issues within that diverse. So it's people of color, disabilities, as well. Um, and I know that is to do with the lack of inclusion and representation behind the camera and also in front of the camera. So I feel the fact that I'm able to speak up about my illness is hopefully allowing other people to feel comfortable in sharing their stories. And fundamentally, I have a frustration with the industry. I'm getting a bit fed up with seeing content out there that doesn't represent us, but yet there's plenty of conversations about how the industry needs to do a lot better, but yet still we're not really seeing anything. So yeah, as I said, my bipolar to me is a superpower, and when I am feeling low, I just stop and just take a break. Or when I'm feeling low, I will find myself writing and just expressing myself as well. So it's I wouldn't say it's a bad thing. It's all positive for me, and I think it's very rare to hear people out there speak about it from a positive perspective. And one of my things is championing that and showing people that it's actually a good thing. Use your so-called illness as use your strengths within your illness to concentrate within whatever field. Use that skill set to empower yourself and show people who are, let's say, normal, that with your illness, that you can bring a specific skill set to the industry.
That is just incredible to hear. I mean, there is so much to pick up on there, Stuart, but that's such a good description of how you use your illness as your superpower, and how that, and such kind of brilliant living example of how it's working for you. And I really hear that frustration of that about all the conversations in the industry and not seeing the change. And good for you for living with that frustration and continuing to take part in the discussions and really, being the change that you want to see. And I look forward to picking up on quite a few of those issues. Thank you. I think I should just say, before we go any further, just a quick reminder that you can pop questions in the live chat for our panel. This really should be as sort of interactive as possible. And we will try to go through as many as we can before the end of the session. So Lenny, if I could just come back to you. You founded DISPA specifically to give a voice to neurodiverse talent and stories. So what does it mean to you to be neurodivergent? And what do you think needs to be addressed to make our industry more accessible for the neurodiverse?
So just to give everyone a bit of background, when I was at art school, my art tutor at the time told me to use my dyslexia within my artwork. So I can definitely relate to what Stuart was saying about using your strengths to create your artwork. And I love the fact that when you're having your low moment, you're writing. And that's something that I recognized within myself as well. So I just wanted to comment on that and just say that it's exciting to hear other people talking about using their strengths to create their content. And I feel very inspired by that. What needs to change, I would say, is, what needs to change is our whole society. But like the TV industry is a very small part of it. The bigger issues is how we educate our children. The pressure that we put on children to be productive and fast and clever and read and memorize, and all of these pressures are part of the problem of why people grow up with mental health issues, because it's too difficult to have a neurodivergent person fit in to a neurotypical world. So, that's a big problem. I don't think anyone can solve it very quickly, but I think what we can do on a micro scale is change what we respect. So when someone can't read very quickly, for example, let's say they haven't read the script in time, to just make small allowances within those meetings, make allowances and make it a safe space where people can disclose that they have challenges. I think like small things about having to mask all the time, it's exhausting. So if we were really in an inclusive environment where people didn't have to pretend that they were not struggling, then everyone would feel more comfortable to disclose their struggles and hopefully then feel quite supported to work on those struggles. And I feel that people that are neurodivergent, that are working within the creative sector, they've got so much to offer that those small challenges can really be overcompensated very quickly once someone feels supported and in a safe space. So for neurodivergent creatives as a whole, the biggest challenge, I would say, is with their confidence, because that has been eroded while they've been in school, and then eroded again when they're masking in their work environment to try and not get caught out. And this feeling of imposter syndrome, I think, is very predominant in our community because of this fear that we're going to be found out, that our handwriting is going to expose us, or our short-term memory is going to let us down. So I think just kindness, what can help society as a whole is kindness. It's the same thing within the workplace. And the fact that people are being bullied within the workplace because they are either thinking differently or looking different or approaching life with different ideals or different politics, even all of these things, it's so oppressive, and it just seems so sad. So yes, I think the way to solve it is just kindness and tolerance of people that are different to you.
I couldn't agree more. Kindness, and we talk about in our workplace, just be a good human. And I really like that thing that you said about, creating those safe spaces so that people can disclose. And I wonder how you feel about the fact that sometimes the onus is sometimes seems to be on the person who is different, who has got a mental health problem, who is neurodivergent, to do the explaining, but really the onus should be on all of us to create those safe spaces. We should be making a change that people can feel comfortable and can do their best work.
Yeah, I think things are changing. Like, I've been running a neurodivergent writers program since 2019. And prior to that, it was quite difficult to speak with the industry about neurodivergence. But I have seen a big shift since 2019 where production companies and organizations are interested in learning more about neurodivergence and recognizing neurodivergence within the diversity banner. So, like things are changing. And for people that have been working in this area since the noughties, which is when I started in 2009, where no one really understood what neurodivergence was, and we were still calling it neurodiversity, and we just thought it was about dyslexia, or we just thought it was about reading challenges, to now understand that it's massive and it incorporates such so many variants within our community. So it's not just about reading and writing, it's about how you think and how you process and how you respond to a challenge. I think that is happening, and that makes me so excited. And of course, more can be done, but at least we're having the conversations, and people are I believe people are genuinely interested in this, not because they want to be auteurs and good people, but because they recognize that actually neurodivergent creatives have a creative commodity to offer the industry. And I think once the industry realizes that they can benefit from the way different people think, then I think is why things are really changing. When you recognize that a lot of the award-winning directors and screenwriters are on the spectrum, then you realize, well, wait, maybe there's something in this. Maybe there's a correlation between neurodivergent creativity and genius. Like maybe that's really the only reason the industry is finally interested in people like us. But whatever the reason is, it doesn't really matter if we start making progress, and that progress benefits everyone. But we live in a capitalist world, so obviously money is the motivator why people are interested in anything that's different to the norm, and it's whether or not you can profit from it.
Gosh, again, a lot to unpick there. Although I would say that I was really feeling very hopeful at the point when you were talking about how you really noticed a change in 2019, and that is something to hold on to, and I'm really glad to hear that. And actually, I wondered if that's a good moment to bring you in, Zeb, because you are actively trying to create those safe spaces in your work, and you're trying to implement those healthy working practices by putting the emphasis on the mental health. Do you think that the way that you structure your company to achieve this could be replicated by other businesses if they were open to it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, the main thing is that you're doing something, I guess. It's the fact that we are sort of able to be more creative and think about things differently is obviously, that's why diversity is great on every level, because you're getting different ideas and different people and different mindsets, different backgrounds, and all of these sort of things involved into your business. And that if you're able to listen, and you're just not just looking at numbers on spreadsheets, you can really figure out how to get the most out of that. So definitely, if you wanted to be a hardcore capitalist, there would be an argument there to have a diverse company on every level, including neurodiversity, because it will generate the best output from your company. So my thinking with the Finish Line has always been, how do we deliver the best looking pictures? We're a post-production company. We're obsessed with picture. How do we deliver the best looking pictures? And ultimately, talent does that work. So our job as a company is to look after the talent, and whether they're neurodiverse or not, the same benefits that we put into the company apply to everyone, and everyone benefits from it. And that means more time with their families, more time to rest, more time to go and do the things that make their life fulfilling, so that they can come to work and deliver their best work. And I think that's that's the key to it all. So yeah, you're always sort of thinking when you come up against something and you think, oh wow, I don't know how to deal with this because it's not my sort of lived experience. Then if you've got enough space to speak with the person that's bringing your attention towards whatever it is that they're going through, you're then able to sit there, talk to them, and pick their brains. How could we change our company that would be better for you? How could we, in your situation right now, do you need shorter work days or less work days in a week? How, what can we change? How can we structure the work differently? So internally, obviously, there's a lot you can do without changing, without having to sort of make massive changes, and you just have to do a little bit at a time to sort of improve things. Externally, it's harder because obviously once you're trying to, for us in post-production, once we're trying to change the way production companies do things or understand things need to be done, it's challenging. Everyone's resistant to change, so you have to find ways. Okay, if we want to be here, how do we spend the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years or whatever taking steps in that direction, so that even just getting people to understand our quoting is based on 8-hour work days. Originally, we were getting a lot of pushback on it, and now no one questions it. So, that you can change things if you're willing to sort of make those commitments and put the effort in. And ultimately, it helps your output, so that makes the business money.
That is incredible, Seb. And I think, well, for one thing, I think probably everyone who's watching would be queuing up to come and work for you. But in all seriousness, I think that there are lessons that anyone who runs a business can learn from. And it really sounds deceptively simple, doesn't it? Do something, be open to the conversation, and think about how we're going to get from where we are at the moment to where you want to be.
That thing that people aren't numbers on spreadsheets is super important across the board. People have families, people have ill loved ones they might be looking after, pets, whatever's going on in people's lives. They are humans, and so you need to know them, and you need to understand their world in some way. That you shouldn't necessarily think everyone should just come, this is the way we work these insane hours, and these are the pressures, and don't leave the office until everyone else has left the office, and all the rest of it. That just kind of, it doesn't really make any sense, and ultimately everyone will just burn out, and that's the reason why you have the big fall off in people in the industry as they get older, as they start having families, and they're all incredibly talented people with loads of experience that if the industry was more supportive of them, they would still be in it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, our research has found, and it's quite interesting, that the case has been made for workplace well-being being good for your bottom line, being good for your output, being good for the retention of talent, as well as the sort of moral case for it, has been made really well in other industries, and actually in the film and TV industry, in the arts industries sometimes, where we pride ourselves on telling stories and investigating things. Actually, I'd say we're about 10, 20 years behind some other industries in actually just buying into that very simple fact that if you look after your people, then it'll be better for your business, and it'll be better for everyone involved. And actually, this feels like a good moment to come on to Stuart, who's also set up his own company. How do you talk to your employees or your freelancers at Create Anything about what their needs are and how to implement them? And what do you do to care for them and to care for yourself? You talk brilliantly about how you care for yourself. Can you tell us sort of how you translate that into how you care for those around you?
Yes. First and foremost, it's sharing my story, and sharing my story first and foremost, because as a director, I've interviewed probably over the last year and a half, I've probably interviewed about 40 Black creatives, Black talent, Black and Scottish, Black and Northern Irish. We're working on Black and European as well. So I have an interview style where what I usually say is, let's say we're both sitting at a table, take my heart stick it on the table, and what you find is people tend to open up a lot more. The more you open up, not holding back. If tears need to be shed, tears need to be shed. People naturally open up. And there's a certain style that I have when I speak to people, and I always share my story on top of that, so that they don't feel like they're always you know they're always constant. Sorry, I can't speak. So they don't feel like it's just about them. So that's the first thing that I've learned through directing, and I've always found that since being diagnosed with bipolar, it's all about self awareness and self reflection. I've noticed for some strange reason when I'm working on dramas, I always have to have someone looking themselves in the mirror. It's just weird. But anyway, my point I'm trying to make is my first approach. And what you find is these people tend to open up as well. With the diverse talent pool that I have, they know that if they get contacted or they aren't contacted by a production company, my approach is, if you're taking on if you're crewing up and take on 5 talented creatives behind the camera, then part of the process is you need to take on another 2. So what you'll find is, and we on each production, you'll find that there's people who always have the opportunity to shadow, because I've spoken to these production companies and opened up to them, and networks as well, opened up to them and said, this is what these people are going through. I've asked them to send emails or contact me, or contact me through any through email or Instagram, social media, etc., and just tell me how they're feeling. And what we tend to do is we start to jot that down, and you start to see a commonality with most of them. And I use that, as I said to you before, in a sense of frustration. I go there not saying, can you please, I go there going in and going, you are going to hire these people. These people are talented. They all have a minimum of 1 credit. This is not right that you're doing this, and that. This is what they're going through as people of color, people with disabilities. But on top of that, they also have, some of them have some mental health problems. And because of how forceful I am, because of this, the production companies, they get the picture. So the main thing for me is, if I open up, they tend to open up. I'm very fortunate that I have a profile now where people will listen to me. So I just take the commonalities, share them with the production companies, and also share my story with them, and it tends to work, because I'm quite an open and emotional man. The productions I'm working on, for some reason, majority of them are tearjerkers, so that tends to be my thing.
Well, that's what makes you so good at your job, and it's what makes you such a brilliant, campaigner. I think that sharing your own story is absolutely key.
Yeah.
It's sometimes easier said than done, and I've shared my story, you've shared your story a lot, and you sort of forget how powerful it can be. And as you said about raising your profile, you now have some influence, and I think that message really needs to go out to people who are in positions of power, who are in the decision-making positions, that you need to speak about yourself, and then others will follow suit. That
Of course.
You have to role model that behaviour, and I think the way you've put that is absolutely brilliant.
Of course, yeah.
Actually, that really neatly actually brings me back to Leo. So as a wellbeing facilitator and a mental first aider, what do you think are the most significant factors in triggering mental health issues in our industry? And how are these issues amplified for neurodivergent people?
I just want to say right now, it's such a pleasure listening to everybody, and it's such a pleasure to hear the stories. And I've been nodding along, like yep, and it's a really inspiring, and I hope people watching feel the same way. I've completely forgotten your question. Sorry, what did you say? Sorry.
The question was,
Triggers.
what do you think are the most significant factors in triggering mental health issues? We'll talk about triggering offline. And how are these issues amplified for neurodivergent people?
I think, from my experience, the triggering moments, like I said in the beginning, were the long hours and the impatience that was around me of not being able to see this person might need to be spoken to in a different way, or have whatever thing I needed to do, a task, explained differently. There was a lot of impatience, and it was all, and so in my experience, it was seen as I wasn't paying attention, same as at school, which was actually the opposite, and it would be like very desperately trying to understand what someone else, a neurotypical person, would just get straight away. And I think the lack of patience comes from, it's not necessarily anyone's fault. It's the intense hours that people are under, and the tighter and tighter schedules. Even now in COVID, it's gotten worse. And just having that, I always try to think like, how can you change this? How can we kind of change those schedules? And it has to come from the top, in terms of that recognition of giving a bit more money and pushing a schedule and give it another week or another 2 weeks, because everybody is acting out of pressure, and those pressures will trigger behaviors, and those behaviors might be insecurity, and rather than speak up, they'll find someone to pick on, and then it becomes bullying, and it's all just amplified when you're on the spectrum and you work in a different way and you think in a different way anyway. And the intensity of working on a set or in a production office or a workshop, it's never ending. And neurodivergency should be, it's like, to me, it's a celebration of other, it's a celebration of different ways of life and different ways of thinking and different backgrounds. And a little bit, I agree entirely in terms of what Stuart said about the frustrations. We've been on a panel before, I think, Stuart and I, and it's great that the conversations are happening and things do take time. And what everyone says here today is 100% relevant in terms of trying to make that change. And it should be simple. It should be really simple, of just be more open and accept different stories and accept different ways of thinking and different creatives and how they work. But I'm afraid that there's going to be this tick box kind of nature of like, we're hiring neurodiversity, and but there needs to be support put in place with productions and within the industry that can help celebrate and help people work, rather than just say we're hiring someone because they're a person of color, we're hiring someone because they have borderline personality disorder or bipolar. It's all well and good to make sure those people have opportunities, but they must be supported and given more time and less pressure on them.
I think that everyone who's watching, that's
all I can keep thinking about. It just keeps coming down to the pressures at the top and the schedules being so tense. It creates certain behaviors that then affect everybody else below the line, and then it just triggers everywhere. So it's almost like, that's the simplicity of it. It's the top, it's the money, it's the schedules. Shift those, and it will effectively. And I sound like a broken record, and it's like I start to like piss myself off sometimes, excuse my language, but it's like, it really is that simple when you look at it and you can see where the triggers are.
Sorry, can I add to that? Do you mind?
Absolutely.
No,
please
go for
do.
it.
No, I totally agree with you. As I said, I mentioned my frustration. I was like kind of being a bit relaxed, but you're right. COVID hit. Production companies, networks were saying, right, we're going to give an extra 5 or 10,000 or 15,000 to production, and it happened like that. So they clearly have the money. You're on set, and I've just finished shooting a drama, and it was just go, 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 and other productions that I'm working on. And it's they will always say that we need to do more. We've had hiring by people with mental health, etc., etc. They keep saying that, but nothing's changing. There doesn't seem to be any process in place. But clearly there was a process for COVID. They need to change, and I believe that it's up to the networks and streaming services, because they're the ones that they're the ones that give the money for commissions. They should put something in place where you need to follow this rule or this guide, or you need to have someone on set. I've seen people get bullied, even that drama, and I did actually shout out on set to someone else in the team. I don't want to say, but I shouted out and said, "Stop blaming. You're straight up. You're blaming everyone. But what if this person has some personal issues where they can't, work to their best ability? Did you have the conversation before the production to find out if anyone has any issues with anxiety? And in the television industry, there's a lot of imposter syndrome. So have you had that discussion instead of just going out there and blaming people? So I am really frustrated with the industry to the point where I'm very, very lucky to be in a position where I'm working on an Amazon Prime drama series for the next 6 months, making a documentary for them and working on a Netflix production. But it came to the point where I was like, do you know what? I'm sick and tired of working with certain networks, that I'm going to go out there and do it myself. And I got this work on my own, and that is due to the frustration with the production companies out there. So it's something that I feel very, very strongly about. And I'm not, and as I said, Leo, I know we sound like broken records, but we have to keep saying it.
Doing it.
We have to keep doing it, because what I do is I'll sit on a panel. I was on a panel with Police Scotland. I've got another one on Thursday, but the one that I'm on Thursday with the Scottish Government, I was on a panel 2 years ago, and the first thing I am doing is saying, what changes have you made since the last time I was on this panel? We need to keep doing it. We might seem like the frustrated ones. We might seem like we're coming across as, but let's not stop doing it.
Yeah.
I just want to add. I just want to add one thing to that. Sorry, is that okay? You mentioned about being on the set, Stuart, and seeing someone and speaking up. That's precisely what the role of wellbeing facilitator has come into fruition with. Is that is a neutral third party on set, and it came from the Looking Glass survey that 2% of people wouldn't feel comfortable speaking to their HODs, but 55%, I think, said that they would speak to a neutral third party. So in terms of that experience you've mentioned, this is what we're now doing. And I've just come off a 23-week shoot with Amazon. And the fact that they even said yes, it took them about 7 months to say to agree to the proposal. It's slowly happening in terms of those big streaming companies, because you're right, those are the ones that are accountable. Those are the ones that can pluck out 25 million out of the air to put a COVID budget in. But last year told me there was no budget for mental health support. It's like, so it proves that it is changing. But I totally hear you. You go off and you do your own thing, and this is kind of what I've done. I've been like, go off and do my own thing, but getting hired by these companies now is slowly changing, and spotting those behaviors on set and calling it out, and actually coaching people on set to look after themselves so they can call it out, and then it kind of becomes contagious in that resort. But again, frustration will always be there, but we can't stop.
Sorry, I don't want to eat your Q&A time, but yeah, I just wanted to say in terms of the changes as well. I mean, from my point of view, it's become really clear that the hours always come up as the sort of main topic, and something that sort of, if someone's struggling with their mental health or general things in their life, when you're working such long hours that you can't maintain your personal life, because you're so exhausted. That's a big problem. But I think to get rid of that, then everyone needs to blow away day rates and work to hourly rates, which is what we do. And it has been beneficial in that we can then, someone comes to you and say, we want to book 2 days, it's 24 hours work. And then we go, why would we do 2 12-hour days? Can we do 3 8-hour days? And they'll say, well, we don't want to pay more. And you go, well, you won't pay more because we charge by the hour. So actually, you'll probably end up paying less, because time and time again, those 2 12-hour days aren't 2 12-hour days, because once you're exhausted, you slow down, and that would actually normally end up turning into about 30 hours of work, so 2 15-hour or more days. As soon as we break it down to 3 8-hour days, actually more often than not, it's less than 24 hours, because on day 3, not only are you finishing at a good time, but on all 3 days, you're working very efficiently, you accomplish a lot more, and you get home and you rest and recuperate, and you're ready for the next day. So it actually is more efficient. I think probably the problem with daily charging is that people will then try and maximize that day, because if I work for 5 days at 12 hours a day, well, then I've actually worked 7 days. I've just done it in 5. So sorry, I don't want to sort of harp on, but that to me is a big thing.
That's a really good point, and that's such a good practical example that others can follow of something that you can do, and that makes perfect sense. And actually, that's really neat, because I do want to go to the questions now. And actually, the first question might actually just come straight back to you on Zeb, which is another very specific question about a working practice. So this is from Michelle, who says, is job sharing a useful tool in your experience, where a neurodivergent person can find a partner to complement their strengths or weaknesses and allow time for self-care? Is that something that you've tried?
Yeah, I mean, we would probably look at structure in that situation, trying to figure out how we can it depends on the job. Handing over specific parts of jobs can be complicated when someone has internal knowledge about it, but it might be that you can break up specific parts of the job, and we'll do that on fast turnarounds. Rather than burn everyone out, we'll throw a ton of people at it. So you could, in a normal or traditional sort of post-production workflow, have 2 or 3 people just working all of the hours under the sun to get something delivered to be on air tonight. Or you could split that in a logical way across 4 or 5 or 6 people, and so they're all doing a small amount, and actually you're done by 5 p.m. or something like that. So it depends. Obviously, there's lots of variables in there, but we'll tend to look at something and try and everywhere that we can try and sort of plan a more logical, practical way to do a job, rather than just kind of doing what we would normally do, but for longer. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, it's about looking at it all, the pieces, and I think that's, going back to dyslexia, I that's why sort of the big thing that I've realized as I've gotten older in that superpower aspect of it is that I can see patterns and connections between things. I think better than other people, and when I was younger and at school, and I loved writing, and actually had my English teacher making fun of my spelling in front of the class, and so that kind of destroyed that kind of dream for me, and I never thought I'm never going to be able to go to university or any of these sorts of things. So to be kind of where I am now is crazy. So. But yeah, it's definitely my whole career has been about sort of pattern recognition and finding connections between things and finding more efficient ways to work so that I can spend more time on the creative side and things like that.
Well, and you're such a good example of finding those efficiencies. And actually, it's really interesting that you mentioned your school experience, because we've got a question here from another Lucy, who is a TV student who is neurodivergent. And this is for Lenny. What were your experiences with school and masking? And also, how was it for you starting in the industry with dyslexia and depression? I appreciate that is quite a long, there's a lot you could say about that, but it would be really interesting to hear about some of your experiences.
I mean, school was horrific. Like, school was oppressive. School was soul destroying, but I was also really lucky that I recognized at a very early age that I was a natural story maker. So where there was an opportunity to create story, I excelled. And that would be in creative writing or acting or the art classes. The sad thing is that all of those creative subjects have been eroded by how political can I get? But since 2010, those creative subjects have been eroded. Michael Gove. And as a consequence of that, those subjects were were the anchor for neurodivergent creative students. They were the things that kept them going through school. Not having those subjects anymore means that neurodivergent children now are having a much worse time than they did in the 90s when I was at school. So how did I cope? I masked a lot. And then as soon as a teacher recognized I was good at something, I held on to that for dear life. So yeah, I feel quite privileged that I was able at a really young age to find out what I was good at. In terms of depression, I didn't even realize I was depressed. I just thought it was normal. I thought my state of oppression was normal. My state of discomfort was normal. And it wasn't really, I guess, until the last 5 years that I realized that, yeah, like how I've been living isn't okay. It isn't normal to constantly be feeling like this. I just thought it was. And I think that's what's so good about where we are now and the awareness that we have now, and the fact that everyone is talking about this without feeling shame or discomfort, to be able to go, well, yeah, actually that happened to me. Like someone else said in the panel, I think it was Stuart, when he said that you just go out there, you put your heart on the table and you see what happens. And that's exactly how I've been able to survive it, because I thought, right, Displa is my opportunity to put my heart on the table and go, yeah, this is me, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. And you know what, neurodivergent people are natural story makers, and this is their gift, and I am here to express that and to shine light on that and to own that, and to own the shame that I also had for being a neurodivergent person. And that is quite emotional, to be able to own your own shame and then recognize that your shame isn't actually yours, it's society's shame, and let them be ashamed for once for how small they want us to be. And we don't have to be small anymore. And I refuse to be small anymore.
I love that.
I absolutely agree.
That was powerful. I loved that.
Really, yeah. That was amazing. I was thinking, I hope some people, some teachers from your school were listening to that. So we should maybe have a program putting it into schools.
I hope my teachers were listening to that. I hope my teachers were listening to that. They've got to answer for.
I think that, that thing about putting your heart on the table and using your powers, using what you're going through as your superpower. We've got another question here. Would any of you like to provide words of wisdom for people in our industry who are neurodivergent and or are struggling with their mental health? I guess we are coming to the end, unfortunately. This might be a nice way to sort of wrap up with some tips for people out there who are struggling. What are your final words for them to hold on to take away from today? Stuart, let's come to you.
I would say, grab a torch, go into the dark, look at the dark shadows, and shine a light into the dark shadows, the woods, and just walk in there, and don't be scared. Because another thing I would say is, I think I've mentioned this before. Bipolar has, they talk about the black cloud and the black dog, and the black dog constantly following you around throughout life. I've realized that this black dog is clearly lonely and is following me around. So one day I turned around, picked up the black dog, and started to look after it throughout. And so it's me owning it. And I realized that once I started looking after this black dog, my life totally changed. So my advice is about ownership. Don't be scared of the dark shadows. Don't be scared of the pain. Don't be scared of picking up the black dog, and use your talent, use your neurodiversity as a superpower and as a skill set. Because what you'll find out is some of the best creatives out there are also similar to us. You'll find that some of the best storytellers, and you've got people like Stephen Fry. Even in sports, you've got you've got someone like Tyson Fury, who's always speaking about his mental health. This guy is 6'9" and the world champion. He's a big man, and he shouldn't be coming out with stories of depression, yet he's telling his story. You can see that people like that are speaking up. Don't be shy. and basically look after yourself.
You look after yourself, look after your black dog, invite it in. I mean, gosh, I've often thought about the black dog, and I'm going to remember that for a very long time. Leo, how about you? Your words of wisdom.
Gosh, I think Stuart said it perfectly. Just to echo, the thing that kept popping in my head is find your tribe, find people who you recognize that might be similar to you, and speak to them and be true to yourself, look after yourself, don't hide yourself, take care of yourself. And when you wear your heart on your sleeve, you'll recognize there are so many people that also wear their heart on their sleeves too, and there's strength in that vulnerability. And I've even got it tattooed literally on my sleeve, my heart. So
That's amazing.
when you recognize that there's something in you that might be a little bit different, don't be afraid of that. Don't hide that away. Just be truthful to that, take care of that, and try and connect with as many people around you who might be similar, and gather your strength together.
Find your tribe. I love that. I absolutely love that. Seb, can we come to you next?
Yeah, I feel like everyone's taking my my ideas as we go. No, 100%. I think the big thing is to do the work. I think a lot of us are lost in the world to self-medicating and trying to process and deal with the things that we're challenged by. And obviously the people on this panel have done a lot of work to kind of get where they are. You know, none of us would have, I'm speaking for other people, which we shouldn't, but I don't think any of us will have started off where we are now. We would have had a lot of challenges along the way to learn these lessons and get to where we are. So the big thing is to sort of take a look at that, do the work on yourself, find different methods. Everyone's got their own world and their own challenges, and the methods that you find to help yourself are not necessarily obvious, but you have to do the work to get there and get through it and figure out when do I need to stop, when do I need to pause, when do I need to sleep for a day, and then make sure you listen to that. But also a big one that's important is not to allow yourself and your passions to be exploited by people in the industry who would take advantage of you, because that is probably one of the other big challenges. Is we all have this imposter syndrome. We all feel so lucky to be here, and then we accept the treatment as part and parcel with the luxury of the job. And it's really important to you know that you're valuable and you're important and you're talented. Don't allow yourself to be exploited if you're working unhealthy hours, and don't have a lot to show for it, and your personal life will suffer for it. Don't let that kind of carry on. I realize that's easier said than done.
Well, that's brilliant advice, because I know that we have a lot of people who are just entering the industry here, so that is extremely important for them. You don't let yourself be exploited, and know yourself and know what is good for you and what is not good for you. And then we'll come to Lenny before, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. So Lenny, give us some more of your words of wisdom, please.
I think the key thing is self-awareness, because the more self-aware you are, then the more control you have over the choices that you make and the situations that you put yourself in. So I think the fact that we are all becoming more conscious as a society, more aware of difference, and more accepting of it is a good thing. But you can't really get there unless you accept your weaknesses as well. So I think, like we keep talking about it throughout the whole panel, of our strengths and our weaknesses, and until the individual really appreciates the benefits of their weaknesses and the benefits of their vulnerability and the benefits of their difference, they won't be able to rebuild their confidence. And if we have no confidence, no one can help us. It has to be something that we rebuild from inside, because we recognize our own value. And I would say then, once you recognize your own value, only work with other organizations that also recognize value and put the emphasis on human value and not profit saving. And I'm very conscious that I am going back to this whole idea of capitalism, but the only reason those schedules are being squeezed is so that someone can make a lot of money by saving a lot of money. So I feel that even though the change does have to come from the top, you have to think about, why would your oppressor free you? They're not going to free you. They're not going to make it easier. So the only real way to get change is to become more political, to join a union, to be more self-aware, and to advocate for yourself and for your tribe. And it has to come, I think it has to come from the grassroots up, because we're the only ones that understand our struggles, and we're the only ones that have the energy to fight for what we believe in and for what we need. Other people have their own issues, their own concerns. And and I think the revolution has to come from down by the grassroots.
Absolutely. Well, I think definitely become a BEC2 member if you're not a BEC2 member. And you can see it all over social media now, what's happening with the film crew in the States. Just join, become a member straight away.
Yeah. And remember that the human value, that's such an important message. And finding the tribe. I think that you guys have done a fantastic job today. For anyone who's listening who is maybe feeling a bit alone or that they didn't fit in, if you're a tribe, I'd want to be part of it. And I think probably most people watching would feel like that as well. So thank you very much for your time, for all of you. I wish we could carry on, but we're really grateful for the time that you've given us today. So thank you, Zeb Chadfield. Thank you, Stuart Chassie Marie, whose surname I have stumbled over, but will eventually get right. Leo Anna Thomas and Lenny Varvaridis, thank you so much. This session will be available here on the RTS London YouTube channel for you to catch up. So please do share this video to anyone else who you think might be in your tribe, if you enjoyed it, and if you think that someone else might be struggling and that they might really help them. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel for the other events, so keep an eye out for those. There are actually a huge number of RTS London events, really great content, so do follow them on social media to see what's coming up. Here's an example of something that's coming up soon. There's a podcast channel, tons of content, and I would be remiss if I didn't say please do follow the Film and TV Charity on social media as well, because we are putting out some really great resources and services to look after and support the people who are struggling in our industry, and also do that campaign, to advocate, fight for change. And actually, and on that note, probably before we go, I should just draw attention to the latest Film and TV Charity campaign called Let's Reset. So Let's Reset, the campaign is an opportunity to ensure that individuals are made aware of the support that's available, and for them and for everyone in the industry, so from freelancers to senior leaders, and to bring their own commitments into this campaign for supporting themselves and others. We hope that a cultural reset is underway in wider society to better understand and support mental health. And if you could share this campaign, the people watching this, I know actually the people on the panel have been amazing and already done some fantastic support on social and elsewhere, but you can help us bring this change to our industry, the industry that we want to be in, that we love, like Leo said, that we're good at, that we love. We should be proud to be in it, and we should own our place in it. So please do share this with your colleagues and friends. Change can only happen by spreading awareness. So let's reset. And finally, again, another reminder: if you are struggling and you need someone to talk to, here's the helpline. Go to the website, and there is a lot more detail on the website about the support that we offer. So that is it for today's event. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you to RTS London Centre for arranging this. And once again, huge thank you to our panel. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care,
everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.